What's up, everybody? It's your boy Nate. WAN 2.1 is a super powerful video generator that you can run completely for free and on most consumer grade hardware. We've covered it in the past, and the results from WAN 2.1 have just been mind-blowing, but there are some new experimental features that came out that are going to allow you to take your generations to the next level. Today, we're going to be diving into the latest features, which is using start and end frame images, which essentially allow you to keyframe your video generations. Anyways, I'm super excited. I know you are too. All right, let's go. Now, in order to run this, we're going to be using ComfyUI, which if you guys do not know how to install ComfyUI, I'm going to be leaving a link down in that description box for you guys to check out, in which we cover how to install it and how to get ComfyUI up and running to where you're able to download custom nodes and a whole bunch of other awesome stuff for it. Now, in the past, we've talked about WAN 2.1 workflows, but for a quick recap, we went over our ultimate native WAN 2.1 workflow, our advanced WAN 2.1 workflow, and our exclusive advanced WAN 2.1 workflow. And if these are completely new to you, the main difference between the 2.1 native and the advanced workflows is that the native workflows use the built-in Comfy nodes. So you're not going to get as many features, but it's going to be a lot easier for you to set up. But if you wanted to take advantage of some of the more in-depth features of WAN 2.1, then we have our advanced workflow suite. And the main difference between this one is that it allows you to also do video-to-video generations and take advantage of some of the awesome features like TeaCache, Sage Attention, Torch Compile, which you're not going to get natively from the Comfy workflows. Both of these are up on our Patreon completely for free, so you guys can go ahead, download it, and check it out. If you're curious to dive a little bit deeper into those workflows, I'm also going to be leaving a link in that description box so you guys can check out the video covering that. But today, I'm going to be mostly covering our latest workflow, which is available for our supporters on Patreon. There is a free version available for you guys to download as well, but it's just not going to have some of those additional features. Either way, I'm going to be diving into this workflow so you guys can understand what some of the more advanced workflows look like. So the main really cool feature about this brand new experimental workflow is that we're able to use input images instead of just one image to drive the rest of the animation or even just one video. We're instead able to have a start image and an end image. And in this example, you can see we have this photo of Marilyn Monroe. And in this one, she's wearing her iconic outfit from the photo originally. But in this generation that we have on the right-hand side, she's wearing a red leather jacket. And as you can see here from the result, it smoothly interpolates between those two images. And since the major difference between the two images is mostly just the clothing, you can see her actually put on the jacket and she resumes that same pose that she had from that initial frame, almost making a seamless loop. So if you guys wanted to mess around with start and end images and weren't a supporter, as long as you follow the guide for getting the advanced generation suite, which is free up on our Patreon, you're going to be able to see here that it describes how to download and install the ComfyUI Wan wrappers from Keyframe. And he's included some pretty awesome workflows that are really easy to access. You just have to go up to workflow, then go to browse templates, and then you're going to be able to see over in the Wan video wrapper section here a bunch of different options, but you're going to want to click on the one that says end frame, and this is what Keyframe's workflow looks like. Now, this workflow is really awesome, but I personally am not a fan of subway map workflow, so that's just the reason why we have our own version. And I also wanted to add in a couple more features that just aren't inside of this workflow to begin with. But if you guys are just starting out and want to learn and mess around with Keyframe's one, it's completely free, easy to install. So a huge difference with ours, though, is that just like all of our workflows, it reads from left to right. So the first step is going to be right here, which is loading in your models. And you pretty much just follow down this entire column until you're complete. So you're going to load in your WAN image to video model right here. And then you're going to load in your text encoder, your clip vision, your VAE, and then you're going to be able to pick your add-ons and load in Allura if you wanted to as well. If you guys were curious where to get those models from and where they go, it's super easy. We have all the links up on our Patreon page, as well as which folders. And it may look super daunting when you go over to the link because there's all these different files. But as you can see here, you actually just need one from each of these categories, and we have it broken down here. Or inside of every workflow, we have this important notes section, which has right there as well where you can find all those models. So you just click and drag this, open it up in a new tab, and you're able to get going that way as well. So once you've installed all of those models by clicking on the section here and essentially just matching the correct name that's already loaded up in here, then you're on to moving to the pick your add-on section, which is where most of the meat and potatoes of your settings are going to belong. So here we have already turned on most of the settings that I typically use. But if you guys wanted to mess around with some of these, we do have some additional features, some that were requested by supporters on Patreon. So that's why this is an exclusive workflow, because they're really the ones who helped shape and guide as to how this one was even created. So here we have video frame interpolation, which is a pretty awesome feature. Most of your generations that you're going to see online are using something like 16 frames per second, which is mostly what 2.1 was trained on. But using a really awesome trick, we're able to bump up the frames that we generate by interpolating in between those, and we're able to get it up to double that amount. So if you guys wanted to use that feature, it's going to be just turned on yes or no right there. And I typically leave it on. If you're seeing your generations come out a little bit slow motion, then that might actually be a reason why, because it's just adding in all those additional frames. So you may have to increase your frame rate as well. Or if you like that look, you can leave that on and just not really worry about it. Another cool feature that we have is enhanced video, something that we've also featured in the past. This is something from Yuan originally. And then here we have our Wan LoRa loader. We also have a prompt replacer. So let's say if you wanted to generate a bunch of different videos, and rather than having to change the prompt in this section, what you can do is just use something like subject, which we have listed here, and then you can replace it with woman or man or dog or cat or whatever you want, and essentially it's going to be changing that prompt in there. I'm typically just going to leave it off for this workflow. Then we also have torch compile, which is a feature that allows you to speed up your generation times significantly, but it does require you to have Triton and Sage Attention installed. We also have a super easy to follow guide for getting those up and running. And we just recently came out with an experimental bat file installer, which helps you install those a lot easier than it would have been if you just follow the steps. And that one is also going to be up on our Patreon. Again, all the links are going to be down in that description box to help you get going. And then here we have SLG, which is just something that helps make your generations look a little bit better, have a little bit more fluid motion. And then here we also have long context if you guys wanted to make longer generation videos, but in this scenario, it doesn't really matter as much. And then for using TeaCache, we also have this turned on. And the final setting right here is clear cache all, which if you guys are noticing that you're running out of VRAM, or your computer is just running completely slow and it's maybe even getting a bit of RAM bleed, this one helps, because if you turn it on at the end of your generations, it's just going to clear all your cache and let you start from a brand new fresh cache. But for this instance, since we're just booting it up, I'm going to be leaving this off. And then here at the very bottom, we have additional outputs, which is going to be enabling this compare video. This one is super awesome. I actually borrowed this from the TeaCache workflow, in which it's able to create these really awesome start and end frame videos in comparison, so that way you can see how it looks. And yeah, this is just a really nice feature if you wanted to have that documentation for yourself. So once you guys have picked your add-ons, set out your additional outputs as well, then you can get into actually loading in your images. And here we have loaded your start image, and then the second one here is loading your end image. And for the most part, you don't really have to change any of these settings, but you do want to make sure that you have a prompt that is reflective of what you want to generate. So if I did not have the clothing transformed into a jacket, the generation might actually look a little bit wonky and not connect those two frames that well together. So if you're getting some strange generations, you just play around with your prompt a little bit more and it might help you out. Over here, we have the negative prompt. It's written in Chinese. You also don't really need to touch this. For the most part, all these settings should be good to go out the gate, but if you did want to change something, the main ones are going to be at the top here. For the step 3 column, this is going to be our quality select. This one just changes how good of a generation it makes. But as you'll notice, the low setting at 1 is going to be the fastest, while the maximum setting at 3 is going to be the slowest. And that just means that it's changing how many steps it's doing for this generation. Another thing that you're going to want to pay attention to is the image orientation, which we have for number 1 is going to be portrait. And then for number 2, it's going to be landscape. So if you guys are working with different formatted images, then you guys can just make sure to set those in your image orientation node right here. And it's going to automatically swap these 2 dimension values for you nice and easily. If you guys wanted to get into this on your own, all the logic for this is set up here in the back end. These are all the settings that you guys don't have to touch. But as you can see here, the step selector here for low, great, and maximum quality are all set over here. We have just a bunch of other additional advanced settings that, again, you guys mostly don't have to touch. And then the final thing is just saving out your video. And here we have our frame rate set to 30 frames per second. And that's because we're doubling up the frames generated with this video frame interpolation node. So After you guys have that all set up, you should be pretty much good to go. And for a little bit of reference, this video generated in just about 6 minutes on a 4090 on the great quality setting. So you guys do have a better GPU, it might render a little bit faster. If you have a little worse one, it might render a little slower. One thing I do want to show you though is that we do have some other generations that did not come out as adhered to the prompt. So I wanted to just show you in this example where we have not only the same car, but we have a different angle of the car. Some of the fire looks a little bit different here from frame to frame, and then the backgrounds are completely different. Since we do have this running, it did not generate it perfectly, so you might just have to test out different seeds as well to get something that you like. Another thing that might help out your generations is also messing around with this value, which is your noise augment strength. And as you'll notice over here, for this generation, we set it to 0.5. And the reason for that is because this helps add in noise to that initial and end frame so that we're generating something that's essentially similar to those images, but not completely so. That way it's able to create some motion in between, and that'll help make the generation work a little bit better between those two end frames. If we had this set to 0, then it would try to adhere it as perfectly as possible. And sometimes you might end up getting hard cuts or some strange transitions that don't look as nice. So this is a setting that you guys can change to make your generations look better or worse depending on your input image. Now, you guys may be wondering, if you've noticed already, is that how do we get an input image and an end frame? Because it's not too intuitive. Most of the time when we generate stuff, we're generating different things all the time. And that's why another workflow that we have that we're going to be posting up on the Patreon as well is one that uses Gemini, and this one is super easy to use, and it's really awesome because it runs completely in the cloud and allows you to do some really awesome stuff. So going back over here to the actual main page, you're going to see this example where it has me in this almost like Han Solo or Jedi rogue outfit where we have these two different end frames. The way I was actually able to generate these different end frames was super easily. It was just using this workflow, and I could upload either the same image for both of these sections, or in this case, a different image as well. And the prompt was just create more action poses of this person. And then we need to input in our API key. Now, Google Gemini is completely free to use. And if you guys are curious how to get an API key, it's right over here. You just follow this link, which is going to take you to the AI Studio section. And here I'm going to copy in my API key. If you guys do get a glimpse at it, don't worry, I'm also going to be rolling this one out. So I'm going to use a different one after this example. But you pretty much paste in your API key right here, right? And then you can close that out if you don't want people to see it. And afterwards you hit run. And what's really awesome about this is that it's not using your GPU at all. So even if you're on a slow computer, this is going to be popping out images super quickly. Let's just give it a second to run here. And bam! So as you can see, it was able to create more action poses. And these all look pretty good and would be able to work well for our next generation. Another thing that you can try and do, so let's say I wanted to have this image and I wanted to just change it from a hippopotamus that I'm writing to a lion. I could say change the hippo to a tiger. And then when we run it again through this workflow, it's going to be able to change those out easily as well. And bam, awesome. So as you can see here, it took that initial image and now it generated these images of me on a tiger. And so now let's say if you guys wanted to be able to create similar images like this one from Marilyn Monroe that we had, all that I typed in was make her have a leather jacket or red leather jacket, and that's how this one was generated. We're able to make some pretty awesome images that we can use as end frames or start frames depending on your subject matter. So another really awesome tool, and we're going to be leaving this one up on the Patreon as well, links down in that description box. And if you guys want to deep dive into even using Gemini in general, we do have a full video about Google's Gemini Flash, which is a really powerful tool, super fun to play with, and that link is going to be down in that description box. So those are the two main workflows that I'm going to be covering today, because the next ones are super experimental, and we're probably going to be doing a much longer deep dive into these once I have all the settings fine-tuned and picked out. Now, if you guys are a supporter on Patreon, you're going to be seeing this posted up early access for you all, but there's going to be a lot more exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. Just a quick teaser of it right here. So here we have an input video, and it's able to generate then out a depth map from that video really quickly, and then we can change the person who is wearing this translucent outfit and walking outside. A woman walks on a fashion runway wearing a red hoodie and jeans, and bam, it's able to generate that based off of that input video. So as you guys can imagine, a lot of cool stuff coming out, and we're going to be covering it. Thanks to you guys, we're able to pump out these workflows. And thanks to your input as well. The reason why we're even covering more 2.1 stuff is because all of the supporters voted earlier this week. So thanks to all of you all, you guys voted and you guys were the ones to decide the next workflows that we're working on. So that's going to be the generation features. So here you can see working on the depth maps, still trying to fine tune in the upscaling options that don't just make the image bigger, but actually the videos much, much better. And also we have just released the start and end frames one. Hope you guys enjoy. And of course, down the pipeline, we also have working on voice cloning. We're going to be doing these bi-weekly or monthly votes so you guys can help determine more about the workflows. And of course, if you guys do have anything super awesome that you want me to check out or even work on, you guys can go ahead, send me a message, and that'll help shape out the next workflows that get created. Again, all those links are going to be down in that description box. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Until next time, all right, peace. Whoosh.